Welcome to the Electorate. I'm your host, Ian West. On today's episode, AOC loses the vote for ranking member of the House Oversight Committee to 74-year-old Gerry Connolly. Joe Biden was showing signs of cognitive decline as far back as 2021. So let's dive in. AOC on Tuesday lost the vote for ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Now, she lost by a vote of 131 to 84 to Gerry Connolly. Now, had AOC won this could have been a signal that the Democratic Party was moving in a younger direction, preparing for the next election, 2026 midterms, and then the 2028 presidential election. Instead, they chose 74-year-old Gerry Connolly, who has also, as of November, told us that he has been diagnosed with cancer, esophageal cancer. So instead of having arguably one of the rising stars and best messengers in the party, the Democrats chose basically more of the same, more of what they had already been doing. Now, there was a lot of talk that Nancy Pelosi was sort of pulling the strings behind the scenes a little bit. Yeah, she's in the hospital right now, recovering from hip surgery from a fall that she sustained over the weekend. But this has been going on for some time. She's been planting the seeds within the party not to select AOC for this position, and there's a belief that she was maybe the driving force behind not going in that direction and instead going with Connolly. I think two things can be true here. I think it's fair to state that Nancy Pelosi is arguably one of the most consequential female politicians of our time. But she's having a hard time letting go. She's having a hard time letting the party move on in a new direction. So basically, since AOC and the quote-unquote squad came into politics back in 2018 and then into 2019, they've butted heads with Nancy Pelosi. And a lot of that started with the fact that AOC was not immediately committed to voting for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker of the House. This, I guess, bruised Nancy Pelosi's ego a little bit. She made some comments about how some people are just in Congress to, for a photo opportunity and the others are there to legislate. And they continued to butt heads for a while after that, over multiple things. There was always some infighting in the party between those two. Well, between the squad and Nancy Pelosi. This has culminated in where we are now, that I think, Nancy Pelosi and AOC are capable of working together. They share a lot of the same opinions, and, that's great. That's why they pass a lot of legislation. But I do not think that Nancy Pelosi is ready for the party to become something other than what she's made it be for the last several decades. And to me, it's just problematic. And, on social media, particularly on Twitter, we had a lot of Democrats with some, more infighting, just what we fucking need right now, but more infighting about AOC not getting the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. And you had some people saying, okay, well, AOC is just, she's too far left. We're not learning anything from the election. And the other side saying we didn't learn anything from the election by just going back with the establishment, the people who have already been there for a long time and had their chance. Now we need to move on. And, in some ways, both arguments are correct. AOC had some piss poor messaging at various points. Two of the deeply unpopular ones are, defund the police and abolish ICE. And whether you agree with that or not, that it's neither here nor there. The population, the greater population as a whole, is vehemently opposed to those two ideas, right? Particularly defund the police. That was some of the worst messaging I've ever seen from the Democratic Party, and it was just fell on deaf ears. Yes, there was a subset of the population that was very pro defund the police. They were very loud, but it's an extreme policy that is just not popular in the United States. It's never going to be popular. So that, coupled with abolish ICE, some of her more progressive ideals have led a lot of people to think that AOC is just this ultra liberal, this socialist, this super progressive. And while she does have some of those, opinions, she's also extremely populist when it comes to policy. And populist is what we need to get back Latino voters, working class voters, black voters, like this whole subset that has been moving away from the Democratic Party since 2012 or maybe even earlier. How do we capture them back? We've got to give them something. So if you go on AOC's, website and you look at her plan for affordable housing, you look at her plan for healthcare, what she feels healthcare in this country should be, and you look at her plan for for how to get people benefits, how to get people things that they need. She has very, very populist policies, things that are going to help a lot of Americans. So this would not really have been a big shift to the left. This would not have signaled that the Democratic Party was then going to go be even more liberal than we have. We're going all in with this, all this means-tested messaging and all these crazy socialist policies. No. What this would have signaled is that this is a new generation of Democrats, and we're focused on winning. We realize that what we've been doing is not working, and something needs to change. And the fact that we chose the most unoffensive individual for ranking member of the House Oversight Committee just shows me that the establishment Democrats are not going to allow that to happen, led by Nancy Pelosi. And she needs to just, get her thumb off the scales, stop playing God with all of this, and let the party move in a different direction, because it's failing right now. And to me, it's problematic for a lot of reasons. It's frustrating. It seems like we're not getting any better. It seems like we're not learning anything. You see this kind of thing happen and you're like, okay, well, are all these people just going to have to die before the party takes it, goes into a different direction? You get Kamala Harris's campaign staff saying, well, we didn't do anything wrong. Everything we did was right. It was just a short campaign. Then you take a look at the ecosystem for social media and podcasts and TV and, that Charlie Kirk's Turning Point's having their big festival out in Arizona this week, and the turnout's massive, and we're just fucking outmatched right now. And that's not going to change until a younger generation is allowed to take over and hold the reins and build the party up into something that it is currently not. And it seems like we're just, we're stuck behind the eight ball. It seems like there's just not really a path forward as long as the establishment Democrats are still there. And in part, I think AOC was at least speculating to herself about a run for president in 2028. And I think this was a way for Nancy Pelosi to head that off before it ever even got started. This would have been a signal. This would have been a shift, a paradigm shift in the party, and Pelosi stopped that from happening. So whether we're just going to get more of the same, there's been some chatter, some reporters coming out and saying that Kamala Harris is not blamed by the Democratic Party. In fact, they would be open to having her run again. That would be just a god-awful fucking mistake, okay? If you're one of those Kamala Harris truthers out there who believe, that with more time she would have won this campaign, okay, that's fine. You can have that opinion. But 2028, it can't happen, okay? We have already seen her shift, right? From 2019 Democratic primary to what she became as vice president and then during the 2024 campaign. In 2028, she's still going to have to answer those questions of how she's going to separate, or how she would have separated herself from Biden, or how she's going to be different than Biden this time. And there's no way that she's going to be able to answer that question in a meaningful way without coming across as somebody who turned on Biden over 4 years just for political expediency, right? So you have a flip from 2019 ultra super progressive Kamala Harris to more centrist Kamala Harris in 2024, to Kamala Harris who is walking back her comments about how she wouldn't have done anything differently than Biden and saying, okay, well, this is what I would do differently than Biden now. It's going to come across as disingenuous. This is going to come across as she's just saying this shit so that she could be president of the United States, and people are not going to believe her. Middle-class voters, working-class voters, black voters, Latino voters, none of them are going to believe her. It's not going to work. That ship has sailed. I'm sorry for Kamala Harris, but it is time for us to move on from that. You know, she can't run again. We have to move in a new direction. We have to reach the voters that we did not reach. And the only way to do that is with younger generation who understands social media, and we've got to be able to do it with a party that can properly message and reach the audience that it intends to. So the Wall Street Journal released an article today titled "How the White House Functioned with a Diminished Biden in Charge." And we were led to believe during the course of the 2024 campaign, when Biden finally dropped out and it shifted over to Kamala Harris, that Biden's decline had been relatively recent, at least, 2024, maybe early 2024, maybe just a couple months before the disaster debate. But this article suggests that is not the case, okay? So this article suggests that Biden's obvious cognitive impairments date back as far as 2021, just a few months after he took over as president of the United States. And aides would say that they often had to repeat instructions to him multiple times, 2, 3, 4 times, such as, where to enter a stage, or where to access a podium, or where to exit to. The videos of him leaving the podium or leaving the stage and kind of looking lost and not sure where to go. People kind of wrote those off as just like, well, he's just not sure what to do right now. But apparently this was an issue with him not understanding, not remembering. He would, I think he ended up hiring someone to coach him on how to be a better speaker, on how to fix, the sort of warble that he has when he talks. And he would often have to adjust his schedule because apparently he was having, quote unquote, good days and bad days. And this was happening just a few months into his first term. He became tired during meetings that went on for too long, had trouble focusing. There was a particular instance in spring of 2024. A national security official explained to another aide why a meeting needed to be rescheduled, and their quote unquote was, he has good days and bad days, and today was a bad day, so we're going to address this tomorrow. It's extremely, extremely frustrating. Okay, so as a Democrat, you know that Joe Biden's decline dates back as far as 2021. Okay, you should have started preparing a candidate for the 2024 election back then. You knew that it might not. You knew that it was going to be a struggle for Joe Biden to even make it to the end of his term, let alone win an election and then go serve out another term until the end of 2028, right at the beginning of 2029. There was no chance. You should have had a candidate in waiting all the way back in 2020, 2021, if that's Kamala Harris, because that's the easiest to transition, you can kind of, get her out into the public and show her as the vice president, show her in these meetings, show that she knows how to legislate. Fine. Is she the best candidate in the Democratic Party? No, of course not. Could she have won with that amount of time and preparation? Absolutely she could have. But the Democrats fuck themselves. They are so afraid of going against the grain and coming across as being unloyal that they just let this man who's just falling apart cognitively in front of them continue on as if nothing happened. And I'm not even talking about what it means that our president of the United States was having good days and bad days cognitively. That's just a fucking disaster. That is dangerous. That is a national security issue. But they should have been preparing all the way back in 2020. Frankly, they should have been preparing in 2020 before he even won the election. Okay, if Joe Biden wins the election, we know this is a stopgap. This is 4 years. We're going to pass it off to somebody else. They're going to take the reins, and they're going to push forward with it. But they didn't do that. They let everybody down. They let the whole party down. They let the nation down. They are the reason that Donald Trump is president right now. Any capable candidate with time, with preparation, a well thought out campaign would have beaten Donald Trump in this election. And again, this is not to say that the Kamala Harris campaign didn't make mistakes, that they're simply the victims of a shortened campaign. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying with enough time, 2 full years to sit there and be the candidate in waiting and let everybody know that, that shows that would have allowed them to try and fail a couple times and be like, okay, we need to reassess and move in a different direction because what we're doing is not working. This is a massive letdown. It's extremely frustrating to me. It's extremely frustrating to most voters, I think. We look at this and we feel lied to. We feel let down. They told us, and Kamala Harris told us, that Joe Biden was not having any cognitive decline. AOC backed Joe Biden. Bernie Sanders backed Joe Biden when everybody was asking them to drop out. All these high profile members of the Democratic Party, they had to fucking know. They had to know. So why did they protect him? And I understand, you have some loyalty to Biden, you have some loyalty to your party. You don't want to be the solo person out there saying, oh yeah, I met with him. This is not the same guy that he was, last week or last year or something like that. And AOC would have taken a significant amount of blowback. Bernie Sanders is somebody that probably could have said it and just been like, hey, what the fuck ever, I'm Bernie Sanders and I've been here for a long time, so it is what it is. But I still feel, behind the scenes, there should have been a bigger push from the higher ranking members of the party to push Biden out, to replace him, to let him know, hey, you made it. You were president of the fucking United States of America, man. Like that is, you did great things, but it's time to pass this off to somebody else. This is about the party. This is about the country. This is about keeping Donald Trump out of the White House. This is no longer about your personal ambitions. And that's a hard conversation to have. And I think that's why after the disastrous debate performance, it took a little bit of time for that to really sink in for him. But this conversation should have started, if this report is true, if the things that were happening with Joe Biden as far back as 2021 are true, this conversation should have been happening back then. We should have been prepared. The higher ups in the party should have known that this is what was going to happen. Should have had a candidate in waiting. And again, if that's Kamala Harris, fine, fucking fine. I have no problem with that. All things considered. But it just, again, I feel like we were just let down. I feel like we were kind of betrayed a little bit with this, this revelation, this information that has come out, and I'm sure this won't be the last we hear. the last we hear of this, I'm sure we'll have more people willing to kind of talk about it. And I think it's a good thing. I had a conversation with a couple friends of mine, and one of them was like, what good does this do? Why are you saying this now? And I think it's important. We're going to have to get our hands a little bit dirty if we want this party to reassess itself, if we want the party to figure out how it's going to move forward in a different direction. And like I said, with the Harris campaign coming on and acting like they did nothing fucking wrong, with Nancy Pelosi pulling the strings to get Gerry Connolly as ranking member of the House Oversight Committee over AOC, and now this information about how basically everyone in the Democratic Party was hiding Joe Biden's actual cognitive decline from us, it feels like nobody's fucking learning. So the only way that we're going to get to the point where the party shifts in a new direction is if we force their hand. So we're going to have to get our hands dirty. We're going to have to call people out, and we're going to have to not be afraid to say things that, the party establishment doesn't like for fear of blowback. Hopefully, that's what this podcast can do. Hopefully, other podcasts and other media can get on top of this and reiterate these points, because if we don't change, we're just going to lose again, and we're going to lose by more, and we're going to lose across the board. No Senate, no House, no White House. We're going to start losing down ballot races. You're going to start hemorrhaging voters. And when you look at the future maps of the United States and how the Electoral College is sort of going to, to shift, we've got states like California losing 4 Electoral College votes, Texas gaining 4, Florida gaining 3, Georgia gaining 1, Tennessee gaining 1. Some of the blue wall states losing. Illinois will be one that loses, I believe, 2. Pennsylvania's going to lose 1. There's sort of North Carolina is going to gain 1, and as somebody who's in North Carolina, it seems like we're doing some things. We've got some very talented people here. Anderson Clayton sort of leading the party in North Carolina is doing great things here. So this is a state that I think has an ability to sort of shift and be more of a consistently blue state, at least at the very top of the ticket. We always pick a blue governor, blue attorney general. We've got a lot of down ballot races that go blue, but for some reason the White House, it has a hard time getting over that line. So we have a lot of work to do. Texas is gonna electorally, between Texas and Florida, we saw how much Florida shifted away from Democrats. It's been a red state for a while, obviously post-Obama, but it's shifting heavy red. So those 2 states are getting more electoral college votes. Those 2 states are going to just basically put a stranglehold on, of Republican guaranteed electoral college votes. So we've got so much fucking work to do that we need to get started right now. And the way that we get started is to call the party out and tell them they need to fix this. They need to be ready to move into the future, because right now they just aren't. So this is Ian West, and I'm signing off on this episode of The Electorate. I will be maybe back in your feeds next week. We've got Christmas next week, off for a few days, but I will probably record an episode the day after. So hopefully I'll be back in your feeds next Friday. But in the meantime, take it easy, and we'll see you around.